And welcome back, everyone, to Who Would Win? The actual Who Would Win for today from William Chedrick. Well, that's the question: Who would win in a fight? Gaara from Naruto. I was about to say his last name, but Gaara doesn't actually have last name. Gaara of the Desert versus Lucy from Elfen Lied. Lucy is what's known as, I believe, called a Diconicus. They're not quite human. They're humanoid and very human and can reproduce with humans, but it's kind of a different species. Lucy has two different versions of herself: the very passive, friendly version of her, and then the psychotic, not even psychotic, just the cold, ruthless, merciless killing machine. She's capable of killing individuals with her vectors, which is these invisible telekinetic arms that she can extend for miles, and that can rip people apart without any issue. They're great for defense and defense. They can even be super heated up when coming together in an attack to basically blow things up. They are exceptionally dangerous. But if one were to say damage the horns in her head, her powers become very minimal. And if one were to completely to destroy them, it could kill her. That is, it's a roundabout explanation, or a very simplified explanation, but that is the general gist. Gaara, we know Gaara was the Jinchuriki of Shikaku, the one-tailed sand demon. He's now the current Kazekage. At least I assume he still is. I don't know if he's alive or not. I assume, yes, he's alive. But either way, his main claim to fame, if you will, is to be able to manipulate sand at will. Now, he does have magnet release. He does have it. And he did learn to incorporate it later on. The sand moving on its own capability, though, is something he naturally has. I believe it is it's his ability just to infuse his chakra into his sand. And the sand in his gourd is special because it's infused with his mother's spirit, which means it comes to his aid automatically. Regardless, Gaara is capable of doing massive amounts of just effects, damage, what have you, from crushing someone in a coffin of sand to manipulating an entire field of sand, like a giant, and turning it into almost like an ocean of sand. Sealing individuals as powerful as an Otsutsuki, which is an alienist god individual. not the one that he fought. I believe that was Momoshiki. No, that wasn't Momoshiki. Who was that he fought? I can't remember. Point being, he was still able to seal that guy away for a good while. He can do massive just tsunamis of sand. He can fly on sand. He's capable of shielding himself and many others with sand, increasing the density if he needs to. He can wear sand-like armor. He can condense it down into a weapon. He can use minute grains of sand and get them inside of you and manipulate your body that way. Gaara is basically a maestro with the sand. And he's even learned to be relatively capable in a hand-to-hand fight, which is something he wasn't originally skilled at. He could take a hit. It's just he was not a hand-to-hand fighter. So this is actually you would think it's a bit of like a non-starter fight, or you think it's a pretty obvious fight, but it's actually not. I had to stop and think because it's really important for this fight whether or not Gaara's sand would react to the vectors or not, whether or not they'd be able to feel that they're on their coming, whether or not they would be able to sense the oncoming attack of the vectors, because the vectors are invisible to the naked eye. But with chakra in the Naruto verse and sensory capabilities, I would have to believe Gaara could either sense the vectors and his sand could react, or the sand alone could react. And with enough sand, he'd be able to pretty much see where the vectors are. He could just coat the entire area in sand, not like completely, just giant block of sand, all that. But I mean, think of it like fog, but for sand. You can still see and all that, but Gaara would be able to literally see the outlines of these vectors and react accordingly. Gaara is actually a very skilled strategist in that sense, because he knows how to use his sand to his advantage. So I do believe Gaara would be able to at minimum sense the vectors, or his sand would react. So he's not going to just immediately be killed. That's not going to happen. But the question then becomes, is his normal sand, or the sand around him, or the gold dust that he actually incorporated thanks to his dad, is that going to be enough to stop the Vectors from wiping him out before he's able to get to Lucy? And that's a good question. I don't know. Lee alone was able to punch through that sand. Now, Gaara's sand defense has gotten a lot stronger, but someone like Lee could have gotten through it back in the day. Kazekage level Gaara, though, is, dozens of times stronger than what he was back then. So, I think in fact he's adding extra sand in there. Plus, he's probably adding gold if he has to. I would say this. Standard Vectors, no, I don't think they're going to get through the sand shield. If she's going all out and going to try to do an island level attack on him, oh yeah, his sand shield isn't standing up to that. He needs everything he can. He's needing the power of the desert on his side. Which, though, to be fair, if we're giving him the best chance, same with her, yeah, he'd have access to that much sand. So, Big Boom, he might be able, but I feel like ultimately it's kind of irrelevant because unlike Gaara, Lucy isn't a ninja. She's a weapon, yes, or at least the Lucy we're using, but she's not a strategist in the sense of, okay, I gotta do this and this. Oh no, their abilities are blocking this, but if I can do this and this. But Gaara is. The whole idea of being a ninja is to, fight strategically if you can. And, well, that's not the whole idea of a ninja, but a lot of ninja fight strategically. And Gaara wouldn't miss a beat with that because his sand, he could easily grab her feet if he wanted to. He could immediately sand coffin her feet if she had, before the Vectors could do anything, crushing her feet. If he tried to sand burial her or sand coffin her, she would just ultimately survive it. Her Vectors, I think, would save her ass, so that's not going to work. But because he can use sand in a much more subtle way, maybe just minor grains, she's going to try fighting him. Meanwhile, he's summoning a sand needle right behind her neck and just and if he learns that the horns are a weakness, which I don't know if he would, if he maybe hits the horn and realizes she reacts, then maybe. And she also runs the risk of destroying her DNA if she overuses her powers. So there's another issue. But if he manages to destroy that, injure her horn, then yeah, she's in trouble. The fact is, her Vectors lack the subtlety that Gaara's sand does, and she lacks the strategic nature that Gaara does. And the versatility. Gaara's sand, frankly, is just more versatile than these Vectors are. And so, yeah, I would probably lean towards Gaara. But there is a lot of what-ifs and ands in this fight. So, I'm not saying it's a done deal. I'm not saying it's a complete shutout for Gaara. It's not. But, or not shutout. It would be shutout for Lucy, right? Either way. I'm not saying it's a complete shutout, but I do think Gaara holds the edge in that fight and would probably get the majority of wins more times than not. But that's just my opinion. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. But thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.